New at 5 Quincy University students are remembering Father Daren Zehnle, who died early yesterday morning after suffering a stroke. One student who is currently involved in campus ministry at QU says she last saw Zehnle right before break as they were preparing for a campus mission trip to Mississippi. She describes a professional relationship with the late priest and that it felt like a real father-daughter connection. Zehnle was only 47 years old.
He would nerd out about anything and everything, so we would talk a lot about like old movies, old video games, just kind of like how we both grew up in different time periods, what it was like.
Zehnle was also devoted to Father Augustus Tolton, who was the first black priest in the U.S. and is on his way to sainthood. Zehnle organized pilgrimages and functions recognizing the life and works of Tolton.